Top of the morning, the afternoon, and the evening to you, whomever you may be, wherever you may be watching, looking, or listening. It is your boy, your player, your partner, your homeboy, your host, Anthony Moore. Ant Mo, for those of you who may know for sure. And welcome to the Mind of a Man Network. And more specifically, welcome to Church Flow, what must be said for the betterment of the body. And tonight, we got a goodie. We got one that's been kind of popular over time here as we get into the frat talk, fraternities and sororities, man. It's been a cause of contention for a lot of people here recently, over the past year, I would say, and it goes in and out. It goes back and forth. Shout out to Aaliyah. But I want to get into some things tonight, man. And at the end of the day, I want us to have a conversation. I want us to come to an understanding. And hopefully, at the end of it, there isn't issues that we're having as a body. We're so divided, but I believe that platforms like this, where we can come together, have a conversation, we can agree to disagree, but we do it all in love. With that being said, can you hear me well in the audience? Please let me know. For my people who have been rocking with your boy for a long time, I love you from the bottom of my corazon, my lonely little beating heart. And for those of you who are first time listeners, you come on back round now. You hear? You show them boys how you do it up in Harlem there, boy. You feel me? And if you can hear me, we're on a new platform, so I just want to make sure that my sounds are working properly. Can you hear this? Can you hear me giving you a little clap? If you can, let's not belabor the point. Let's not take a long time because I do want to get into this frat talk. But I'll do it one more time for my people in the back. Please let me know if y'all can hear the sounds. And if you can, I want to play y'all a little intro. Thank you. Thank you. So I don't have visuals for this yet, but I had a little something, man. For those of you who know, I used to do a little bit of music here and there. I used to dabble and I used to do a little dabbling. Now, this ain't nothing that's going to win a Grammy here, but I do want y'all to hear this little intro that your boy came up with that is audio only. So I'm not going nowhere, but I want you to listen. Y'all tell me what you think. Yeah, let's go. Let's get into this church flow.
Church flow.
Because we be talking about all the things that the people
Don't know.
Let's get into this church flow. Yeah. Because who knows?
Who?
Only God knows.
Yeah.
Let's get into this
Church flow.
Because we be talking about all the things that the people
Need to know.
Because who knows?
Who?
Only God knows.
Yeah.
Let's get into this
Church flow.
One more clap, man. I put that together a little fast, dog. I felt a little good about it. I ain't gonna lie to you. So, you know what I'm saying? Y'all tell me what y'all think about it. We're gonna get to it. But man, let me see. Let's check out these comments really fast. Randy C. Mays in the building, dog. Randy C. Mays in the building, dog. He come in, he say he's 6 hours early. And you know why he's 6 hours early? Because y'all ain't really rocking with the Mind of a Man Network like Tom about, you feel me? Hey, man, do me a favor, dog. Go ahead and smash that like button if you're in here, dog. The likes don't do anything but let more people jump into the conversation. It exposes people to what we got going on. Don't keep me to yourself, Kefo. I want you to share me with the world. You feel me? So please hit that like button. Smash the like button. You feel me? And then while you're at it, if you have not did it, if you're a first time watcher, first time listener, you please come on back around now and hit that subscribe button. And please tell a friend to chime in and step in and tap in. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for with the Mind of a Man Network. You feel me? And so that's one of my faithful fews. You know what I'm saying? And then we got LaShonda. I ain't gonna say her whole name. We got LaShonda Reese in the building. Hi. And then we got Bruce Wayne Glass. Perhaps he's wondering why someone would shoot a man before throwing him from a plane. What's good, my guy? He let me know the sound is good. Reset, the sound is good too. Said we can hear the sounds. And she said, okay. So yeah, man. So hopefully I get y'all some visuals to go along with that for church flow. You feel me? You feel me? You feel me? And Bruce Wayne Glass said, like, share. Well, he said, like, we saying share, subscribe, and tell your friends. Tell your friends about me. You feel me? So, man, let's get into it, dog. So, first of all, thank you for anybody who is tuning in, tapping in. You feel me? I might want to charge my phone before it dies on me. But man, we are talking about frats, man. And for those of you who are not familiar with church flow, man, we get into conversations about what we can do to make the body better. It's really that simple, man. We are super divided at times, and we got to do a better job of working together. And so, with that being said, this platform helps to ask some tough questions, and we don't claim to have it figured out. We just want to work together to make sure that we can do better as a body. So, with that being said, man, frats, fraternities, the Divine Nine, right? We got sororities, we got Kappa, Alpha, Gamma. We got Kappas, we got Alphas, we got Sigmas, we got Omegas, we got Sigma, Gamma, Rho. We got them all, kinfolk. You name it. We got all that, right? And so, for those of you who may not know, in 1904, the first black fraternity was created, and it was not the Alphas. It was Sigma Phi Pi in 1904. And that is just to give you context on when the first one was around. And a lot of the information that I gathered, I got from other sources. You know, I did a little bit of research myself. I've watched numerous videos. You know, and that's been a large portion of where I got the information from. But it is causing a tiff within the Christian. What am I trying to say? In Christendom. There we go. It is creating a tiff in there because people don't feel like you can be saved and be in a fraternity. And so what it is doing is creating this divide within the body, right? Where there are certain things that go on, whether that's in the pulpit or whether that is within young Christian what do you call them, frat houses or whatever that may be, that a lot of people feel don't actually represent what it means to be a believer. And I just wanted to kind of give some background on some things that I've seen. And at the end of the day, I'm not here to make anybody do anything. You should choose this day whom you shall serve. There are some things that I was told when I was younger that I didn't understand. But as I matured and I got more information, it opened my eyes to certain aspects of why this could be something that could be a little deleterious to your person or to the body itself, right? And so, with that being said, let's start with the beginning of Genesis, where if we go back to Noah, and Noah had a few brothers, and one of those brothers was Ham, right? And so, for those of you who may not know the scriptures, Ham walks in, he sees his brother naked, he comes out, he tells his other brothers, um, they walk in backwards, they cover him up, and they Ham, you know, it was, I'm assuming it was something negative associated with walking in and seeing him naked. And so when Noah comes to and he realizes that Ham saw him naked, he curses he curses the Canaanites, which were the offspring of Ham. And so um the that brings me to Nimrod. And so what I put here is Ham was Noah's brother. Ham fathered Cush. Cush fathered Nimrod, right? And so those were the Canaanite people. And so his kingdom, for those of you who are not familiar with Nimrod, he was considered a great hunter in the Bible, and his first kingdom was Babylon. And if you know about Babylon, Babylon was where they decided to build the tower to God using brick and straw and all of that, right? And God coming down, looking, seeing that this wasn't good, these people all being of the same language, being able to work together on one accord, what won't they be able to do? This is not good. And essentially, they were seeking to edge God out and be their own people with their own understanding and do things their way. And so God disperses everybody, confuses the language, and separates everybody. And so now we have the earth as we know it for people who are believers, right? And so starting with who was the leader of those people, those Babylonian people, was Nimrod. That was his first, that was his kingdom that he was a leader over. And so, what we have to understand about the Canaanite people, and so what I desire to do, let me be clear, is take you on this journey where you kind of get the background on what the Canaanites represented, what the Greek people represented, and how it trickles down into even what frat life is today. And so, what we know about the Canaanite people is, which were introduced, by Nimrod, who was a leader of those people, uh, was the introduction of demon worship, child sacrifice, and other occult rites or rituals that spread as they migrated to other places, right? And so, if you look at Genesis 9 and 25 as a part of what Noah cursed the Canaanite people, Ham's offspring, it says in Genesis 9:25 that the Canaanites are cursed, and he will be the lowest slave of it to his brothers. So there's already this negative association with the Canaanite people, and maybe there was something to this. I don't know. Some things get sticky when you start looking at, did they ended up being the people that they were because of the curse, or was it something that was identified from that seed of Ham and even the actions that he did that ended up trickling down, right? It's even like when you look at Lot, right? And his daughters get him drunk, they have sex with him, and from those people became the offsprings that actually warred against their cousins, right? So, you know what I'm saying? And that was the Ammonites, if I'm not mistaken. And so, there's this thing where it's like, in the Bible you see this continuum of things done out of order come with the repercussions, and it kind of travels through the lineage, right? And so there's repercussions for sleeping with your father. That's wrong no matter how you slice it. And so now your people become an enemy to God, right? And so we look at the Canaanite people. Ham does this wrong thing, and then you have Nimrod in his lineage. You have the Canaanite people in this lineage, and they are these people that practice things that are against what God would want to be represented by. And so that's actually what I put. God was and is against such practices, and are the greatest argument against anything that resembles these said practices. So when you start looking at anything that would go back to any type of Greek or Grecian type of lineage, it's like, well, if we get to the root of what they represented or what they were about, they are the very things that God is against. And so when we start getting ahead and looking at, whether that's hazing or different things that were introduced to fraternities, or even Freemasons, these type of things, they all still have their roots going back to this, right? And so the Canaanites were also known as the Phoenicians. So basically, if there's a text where you see people being spoken of as Phoenician or Venetian, which were people in Italy that derived out of Italy, those are all still the same offspring of people: Canaanites, Phoenicians, Syrophoenician, Venetians, right? Specialized in occult practices and pagan worship, right? So for people who start wondering where deities get involved in frats or anything like that, and then you might be still wondering, well, how does that intersect with the 2025, these people who worship false gods or practice occult things? Well, we are definitely getting there. And so if we go a step further and we look at Matthew 15:21 through 26, right? It is the context of the woman who is a Syrophoenician Canaan. She's a Canaanite Syrophoenician woman, right? So she's mixed with Greece. It was Greece, and it was modern day Syria is what it would be now, right? So she's Syrian, she's Greek, she has Greek, you know, bloodlines in her as well. She practiced a lifestyle that caused or allowed her daughter to be possessed, right? Because if she's a Canaanite and It's almost like saying if you're a Jewish person, you practice a certain lifestyle, way you eat, all of those things, right? So we understand that the lineage of who those Jewish people are and what they represent is going to be portrayed throughout time and history. No different for the Canaanite, Phoenician, Syrophoenician, Venetian, right? So they practice certain things. She practiced certain things in this story that allowed her daughter to be possessed. She approaches Jesus as he's leaving from somewhere and headed somewhere, as Jesus often was on the move. And she says, "Hey, can you get this demon out of out of my daughter?" He basically says, "Hey, I don't throw my food at the dogs." You get what I'm saying? And that goes back to what we read here. Canaanites are cursed. He will be the lowest. He will be the lowest of slaves of the brothers. Almost saying you're the slave of a slave. You're like a dog, right? It's like you're treated like the lowest of the low. And so he's referencing that, right? He understands what your root is. He understands what Noah said, even. And so he's like, "Hey, I'm not here for you or your people. Like, this is, my mission is something else." And that's when she said, "But even the dogs get the scraps from the table." Whoa, I've never seen I've never seen greater faith in all of, Jerusalem, or whatever he said. And then then he heals the lady. And, when she goes home, her daughter no longer has a demon and she's sleeping, right? So it's the understanding. Now we're seeing more present day how this is who they are. This is the father of Nimrod, is the father of this thing, this demon worship, these occultic, rituals, these sacrifices, all of these things, right? I even dare say societies, right? And then we translate it to seeing how now, because of the migration, there's this integration of this Greek way of life. And so Canaanite, Greek, there's this mixture of this now. So now we look at what this represents, right? Witchcraft, idolatry, and mixture, right? Now there's this mixture of how they live, what they practice. It's syncretism. Syncretism is the mixture of different cultures, and it is the greatest evidence that is not of God. Oftentimes, if you listen to somebody like Darius Daniels, right? He breaks down these third way living. So you have the world's way, you have church's way, or let me say, you have culture, the world's way, culture's way, you have church's way, and then you have Jesus, God's way, right? And so what often happens is we end up living our lives in a way where there's this mixture between things that we probably just want to do, like to do, what we've known to be the norm, right? So it's what we've seen the world do, right? Whatever the world's culture is, right? Whether that is living a certain lifestyle, whether that be I don't have a gender or whatever, right? Or racism, hatred. Those are all the world's way of living. And then you have the church's way, religious ways of doing things, right? So we do this, we do communion this way, we tithe this way. It doesn't speak to a relationship. It speaks to a certain way that you're supposed to do a thing on a regular basis, or this is what's considered the norm, right? And then you have Jesus's way, which is pretty much saying, "Hey, okay, you have the Romans, right? That's the world. And then we have the Pharisees. That's the church's way." And then Jesus was always speaking against both of those things. He was always showing like, "Oh, they said, oh, your disciples are picking wheat on the Sabbath, right?" And he's like, "They with me. They good. When I'm not here, they'll the Holy Spirit gonna come and this and that." But he was always showing that there was this certain way that we had to live. And so when we look at this, we're understanding that any of those things that they're practicing does it already is against what God has ordained for us, the way he views life, what he would desire, how he would desire for us to live. And so we can't get caught up in doing things as church as usual. We can't get caught up in this is how I seen my big mama do it, or that's how my daddy taught me how to talk to girls or treat women or whatever that may be, right? It's the idea of, even in scripture, where, God said he didn't want them mixing fabrics or something like that, right? And basically what God was saying was, I want purity in the way that you live your lives. There can't be this syncretism of, and I've talked about this before. There can't be this thing where we read our Bible and we burn sage. We pray to God and we believe in horoscopes. We can't live that way. It's synchronizing multiple things that don't have anything to do with the way God would have us to live our lives. And so hopefully you understand that there's a foundational thing that's being set here, that it's not knee-jerk stuff. This is just the reality of the word. This is the reality of how God would have us live, and how these things start trickling down, right? And so when you look at a Sigma Phi Pi that was, brought about in 1904, or, Alpha Phi Alpha, which I believe was brought about in 1906, they are the oldest of what would be considered the popular frats of that time, right? And so what ends up happening, right? And because I've listened to a few people break this down, and I'll do my best to explain this to you in an eloquent way. But what ended up happening during those times was, it was about academia, and it was about us as Black people finding a place where we belonged. It was about us not having something to call our own or to build from the bottom up. And so we borrowed from our Caucasian counterparts, because the first actual fraternity was brought about in the 1700s. And that was, where is that? No, that Phi Beta Sigma, or Phi Beta Kappa, which is a white organization, which their practices were Grecian in nature, Greek in nature, and it was built on philosophy and an intellectual prowess. So one of the things that I saw that I made note of is the Greek people, the Grecian people, Plato, Socrates, all of these great men of wisdom, they worship wisdom, which was the goddess Sophia. And so what we have to understand is, a lot of what they did, albeit they helped define a lot of the world and how people viewed and did things, but it had nothing to do with Christian culture. The above and beyond pursuit of wisdom, the worship of the being profound and, seeking higher thought, was the worship of wisdom itself. And so when you look at the Phi Beta Kappas, or, those original people, it was based off of adopting culture that represented this academic, intellectual, philosophical ideal of the way you lived your life. And so my first thing about that is, it seems to me that throughout history, as Black people, as African American people, as people of color, we've always sought to fit in to whatever white and evangelical or intellectual worlds were trying to do, because we weren't comfortable operating in whatever spaces that we were. I listened to Lecrae Moore, and with no disrespect to Lecrae, but I mean, I absolutely hated the video, because it became this apologetic for him being a Kappa. And what was the reason? Like, I don't believe that any frat started off initially as some evil or negative or demonic thing. But at the same time, we have to be careful, and I don't want to skip too far ahead on my notes, but we have to be careful that when we talk about the redemptive nature of what we represent as believers and what, nothing is inherently evil, it's what we do with it. We have to be very careful that because my other statement is absolute power corrupts absolutely. We think oftentimes in Black America that we're going to take something that white America has done and then we will do it better because we think we are inherently better. And it is a recipe for disaster, because when you get a taste of power, when you start to mingle your motives with things that don't line up with the word or don't line up with the Holy Spirit, or that you can't bounce off of, talking to God and getting clarification about it, it ends up being something that we use in a way that is abusive, that it can be slanderous, or it could be, it's just corruption of power. And so when we look at frats, when we look at the inception of the Divine Nine, all of them having some great reason on why they wanted to, bring about their frat, whether that was service to the community, building some type of society. Once again, we start looking at this secrecy, this society of people, where it's like, hey, we have this inner circle of people where we can live our lives a certain way, or we can have where our people who achieve the highest levels of intellectualism or academia can come and be themselves. It's usually rooted in something that is good, right? It's something that is honorable. But to even skip ahead, I've never met a person that didn't have a story about being a part of a frat where there wasn't drunkenness and orgies and lascivious living. I've never heard it in all of my life. I don't care who you are, for the people. And if you didn't tell me about it, it's because you didn't want to tell me about it. It wasn't because you didn't partake in it. Most of the time, I don't know if any of you have been to college life or seen. It's like me singing, right? I have the ability to sing. I was working my best friend's event, and I was coming down these stairs and I was singing a song, and this girl turned around so fast and started smiling, and almost like she was about to follow me because she heard me singing. In the same way with frats, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but young ladies will do anything to be with or to lay down with somebody who is in a frat who has the letters. I don't even think that it's just that appeal to it. I think it's something very perverse in nature that allows them to feel the way they feel or to move the way that they move, right? The numbers are so appealing. Like there are certain things within it that can make you feel a way, even, right? And we have to understand that as believers, or that as human beings, not all things that we're unaware of, or there, let me say it a different way. There are things that we could become a part of that we are unaware of, that can very much be devilish, that could be enrooted in, that could be deeply entrenched within a level of evil. And I've only ever heard people, I've never heard anybody that was a believer that was a part of a frat or a sorority listen with open ears honestly to even allow somebody to speak some manner of truth, or I won't say opinion, but what they may have heard or believed to know or talk about, that could be something that would say, hey, I don't think we should be a part of this as believers. It's always this 10 toes down approach to arguing against anybody. Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. That's always been kind of the nature of it. But I think that most things that has a hold of somebody, you don't know that they have a hold of you, or sometimes you don't know why, right? But we'll get into why that may be. But once again, so we look at young Black men that are just now able to get into high levels of academia, whether that's the Harvards or the Yales of the world, you know, Indiana University, Cornell, I don't know, just whatever those small sect of black people who were able to be a part of these high ranking um institutions or universities, they were looking to be a part of something that they at some point didn't, weren't allowed to be a part of. And so instead of, in my opinion, if we're talking about believers being able to now be a part of this, you know, whether that's finding community within your church, it's almost like there's this feeling of elitism that comes along with higher levels of intellectual understanding or prowess or achievement, that now you don't feel like you're like everybody else, so now we have to create this society, now we have to, have this secret thing, this whether that's a handshake or this creed or whatever, because it makes us feel like we are special, right? And I think inherently that may be okay to want to feel special, but I think, all right, glad you made it. But I think we have to be careful, because once again, there are certain things that we have to understand, that once we start looking for something outside of the metrics of what God would have for us, outside of something about what the word would say is acceptable to us, we start kind of veering off into other lanes that don't look like God. And so I'm going back to the inception of, for over 200 years, white counterparts had fraternities. Black counterparts wanted to do something similar, and so they took and adopted Greek letters, because that was what they believed to be the highest level of philosophy, intellectualism, achievement even. And so they just took it and made it into their own, right? And on the surface, you could say that's nothing wrong with that, and that's cool if that's what you want to believe. I just don't believe, even hindsight, that represents a level of individualism. If we take something and then we say we make it our own, I don't. I think we just got to be careful with stuff like that, right? So let's skip ahead and then look at the pledging process, right? These are things that when we look at it on its head, right? There's this secrecy that is brought to it. So within the Grecian way of life, there's these rituals, and that births in Freemasonry. For those of you who don't know, Freemasons infiltrated the black church through the AME church, and whatever that first inception of the AME church was, they infiltrated it through that. And I will use the word infiltrated. It is what it is. But that's when it became okay for the Greek, there to be some parallel between the Greeks, Freemasons, sorority fraternities, and the black church specifically, right? Because I don't even see a level of fraternity within white church unless you're talking about the KKK. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not even dealing with that. But so, and let me just take a parenthetical pause here and kind of say this. I do think that as black people, we have to not make these allegiances to frat and God, where I know a lot of people, I know a lot of people who I see them post and talk about fraternity more than they talk about God. And I'm not saying that your page has to be this grand billboard of, look at me, I'm a Jesus lover. But I see people who everything they wear is a color associated with their frat. Men who are very high up in age at this point, that they pledged 30 years ago, and everything that they do is associated with their frat, the bros, all of that stuff. And I just think you tread a fine line with that, because that becomes idolatry. When I know you more for that, and I'm talking about even within a Christian setting, when I see you more for your colors, for your frat, than I do for people that are believers. I think we have to be careful in the fine line that we tread. Police officers and doctors make oaths too. What do you say about that? I'm gonna be honest with you and appreciate you, Randy, for tapping in. I think people who use these type of arguments make the dumbest arguments that you could ever think of that are known to man. Because if there's something within those creeds that talk about abuse of power or oaths to gods or something like that that aren't what you believe, then I say that's wrong. But if a police officer is making an oath, and Lecrae brought this up too, that not all vows and oaths are bad. Absolutely, we know that. No duh. But I just think you play with our intelligence when you bring up these things, right? I don't personally pledge allegiance to America. That's not my thing. I did that when I was a kid. I don't do it anymore. I don't personally think that America represents something that I want to make a pledge to, right? Well, that's a whole nother story. But police officers make a pledge or an oath to serve and protect. Doctors make an oath or a pledge to do no harm, to operate what's in the best outcome of the patient and things of that nature. So stop using. I just don't like when people use other people and other things to kind of draw the attention away from themselves, or to try to like incorporate everybody. It's like getting into an argument with your lady, or if you're a woman getting an argument with your guy and you bring something up and they say, "Oh yeah, well what about when you didn't clean the dishes yesterday?" Boy, we ain't talking about that right now. If you had a problem with me not cleaning the dishes, you should have said something about that yesterday. But right now, that's not what we talking about. Right now, I got you on the carpet. And if you're in the kitchen, you got to be able to stand the steam. You got to be able to take the heat. So so there are people within any group, whether that is police officers, doctors, lawyers, that do harm. And that those people typically aren't even the norm. They're the outliers. But we focus on those people so much that we make it seem like that's everywhere. And I get that. But if we're talking about frats, those people who say we're called to, we were redeeming it. Like, and we look at the Lecraes of the world. I'm assuming that Fred Hammond has to be a part of a frat. Randy, can you double check that for me? Because the way that he was talking on Lecrae video, he has to be a part of a frat. But we talking about Lecrae. We're talking about Eric Mason. My brother, I have never, you are so astute. You are so intellectually charged with wisdom and knowledge. I've never seen a man stumbling over his words so much as I've seen Pastor Eric Mason when he talks about fraternities, when he talks about being a part of Kappa Alpha Psi. I just don't understand why y'all, I don't get it. And I don't want to get super off script here, but I just don't understand why y'all, and I guess I do understand, because there's an ability, there is this thing within people that the things, a hit dog a holler. So the things that I feel so strongly about, I'm going to lead the charge for. I am going to make the biggest argument for. And it's unfortunate to me that we can't and then we use scripture out of place. We bring up things that don't matter, and the scriptures about new moons and things that are debatable, and or that are I hate that I can't remember the terminology, but there are certain things that we just use to justify our personal beliefs or personal preferences. And so the pledging process, all of this secrecy, all of these things like demonic in nature, it's the reverse of Christ's sacrifice. It says Fred is an honorary member of Phi Beta Sigma, as of this year, according to Google. Blue 5. I I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Anyway, see, that's why, when your partners come over here, man, they gonna always take all of the seriousness down here. But yes, so like I said, demonic in nature, because it represents the reverse of Christ's sacrifice, right? All of the things that you have to put yourself through, all of the things that you do, it's I get the basis of why there's so much of an allegiance to that frat or that sorority. Filthy things. Women can't shower, have to, can't take care of your feminine hygiene. If guys throw up, you it better not touch the ground. So another dude will use his shirt to make sure that your throw up doesn't hit the ground, and then you can't wash that shirt. You gotta literally put those clothes back on every time y'all go to what's considered set, which is a meeting, right? And then there's this Invictus poem that we're gonna look at. Okay, so let me pull this Invictus poem up, right? And let's read this out, because this is something that every part of the Divine Nine recites. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. So first of all, I thank whatever gods, lowercase. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Freemasons, they allow you, doing your crossing or your ritual or whatever. If you're a Christian, you can bring a Bible. If you're a Muslim, you can bring the Quran. If you are a Hindu, you can bring whatever y'all look at or swear to. You could do all of that stuff. So there's this mixing of cultures once again. What do we stand for? We stand for the greater mission, which, and I'm talking about, for if that's somebody that's within a frat, if that's somebody that's within the Freemasons specifically, the greater, when you get to the highest level, the 33rd degree or whatever, that's when you realize, hey, this is what we represent. We worship the devil. But they often say, any of these, any of these groups, they say that they worship themselves. Like, so there's this worship of self, which is demonic in nature. And then ultimately, once you get to the highest level, you realize that you're worshiping the devil, right? And so it says, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. Somebody's gonna have to make that make sense to me in a real way, because why would I be saying something like that? In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. This is creepy. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate. Okay. How charged with punishment the scroll, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Well, so what I remember is listening to Nipsey Hussle, right? I remember listening to the Victory Lab, right? And he said something like that at the end of it. I'm the master of my fate, or something like that, right? And he might even say the master of my fate, captain of my soul. But my point was, I never felt comfortable saying that, because I don't ultimately think I'm in control of my own life like that, right? I think I work like it depends on me. I pray like it depends on God, but I can't say I'm the master of my fate. God already knows the hairs on my head. He knows how many steps I'm gonna take in my life. He knows how many days I'm actually, before I was born, he knew me. He knew when I was gonna live and when I was gonna die. Period. And so I don't feel comfortable. So this is this is about self-empowerment, and it is very demonic. Whether you like it or not, anything that is not worship of God, the opposite of that is what? Somebody trying to text me right now. Cash, I can't text you right now at this moment. I'm recording, but yes, this is what we have to start making very black and white. You know, I will tell you what my boy Randy said to me the other day. And he said, and 1 second, LaShonda said, I've just never had the desire for the sorority stuff. Yeah, I think you got to be very careful. I think you got to be very careful with that. Visuals is brazy too, my boy. Thank you, my guy. Man, we working, dog. But this is what my boy said. The opposite is witchcraft. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or or something that is demonic in nature for sure. Right? It's like to you either worshiping God or you worshiping what? Like, because worshiping yourself, demonic. Worshiping the devil is clearly demonic. And here's what we have to start understanding. Because I got some stuff and I didn't get to put it on my notes, but I'm finna pull this up, right? And this is a breakdown of all of the Greek gods that they worship, right? So let me tell you, let me just call them out for you real quick. So this is list of Greek gods, the idols, right? So Alpha Phi Alpha, Sphinx, mythical creature in Egyptian, Asian, and Greek mythology. In Egypt, it is associated with the sun god Ra. So alphas have to know Egyptian history. They have to know all of that type of stuff. One of the things that I really am disappointed with, and it makes me feel away, not like angry, it gives me a certain level of chills to know that I saw the pastor of my church doing this thing on stage, taking pictures like that, throwing up this and all of that. That does not belong in the pulpit. No way, no how. And to think that that's okay is very dangerous to me. It is no different to me than somebody prophesying about money that somebody's going to get, about somebody's life may be in danger, or anything that God didn't tell you, but you are speaking as the authority for him in that space. It is dangerous. Whatever you do, whatever you did on a campus in the dark, being in the cut, let me just, because we could be here for a while. If you come to just get some clickbaitish stuff, do what you do. Watch my shoes. But I want to get into the weeds about this, and I want to have real conversations. People who may want to come up and have a conversation about it, I'm cool with it. I don't feel no way. I'll send you a link, my boy. Not tripping. But I just don't come and be looking for some garbage false entertainment, because that ain't what we on. So that is for Alpha Phi Alpha. So the Sphinx, mythical, is associated with the sun god. And so we have Horus, the Egyptian sky god, as well. So then we have Alpha Kappa Alpha, right? The Atlas Greek god shown on crest, which is Themis, Greek Titan goddess mentioned in rituals. So then you have Ketish, Kadesh, Kodesh, maybe Semitic fertility, goddess of cannery, Syria, or Sumeria, goddess of beauty, love, and lust. Informal association. So they're saying that's not really like a for sure, but it's something in there. Then you have Delta Sigma Theta, which is the goddess Minerva. She's a Roman goddess of wisdom and war, shown on the crest and in rituals. Then you have Iota Phi Theta, which is the centaur, the Greek mythical creature most notably known for savagery, drunkenness, and violence, sexual violence in particular. The centaur Chiron or Chiron is claimed to represent wisdom. All right. So then we have Kappa Alpha Psi. Now, for all intents and purposes, let me tell you, I would absolutely pledge Kappa if my life went different. I'm telling you, like back then. I'm not saying I have any desire for that now. I'm saying as a 17, 18-year-old young man, I just so happened to have babies early. I had a baby very early. But if it wasn't for that, I always thought Kappa was cool. Kappa Alpha Psi was cool. I thought the yo was cool. The red and cream was cool. You know, I thought I was blood growing up. And the shimmy and all that stuff was cool to me. So I'm not acting like I'm above the fray. I'm saying that when you know better, you choose to do better if that's what is in your heart to do. Right. So Kappa Alpha Psi, Apollo, Greek god of sun and light, mentioned in rituals. You got Ares, Greek god of war, battle, mentioned in rituals. You have Thoth, Egyptian moon god of wisdom, magic, etc. So then you have Omega Psi Phi, Shekinah, also known as Ashra, Asherith, or Astarth, which is what we often hear about as believers in the Bible, the Asherith poles and things of that nature. So Omega Psi Phi, Shekinah, female goddess spirit in Kabbalah and Merkava, mysticism, and Gnosticism. Omega rituals refer to spirit of Omega as female in nature. And then you have Anubis, which is this. Well, let me hold on. So Anubis, Egyptian goddess, god of the dead, depicted with head of a jackal slash dog. And so I was always told about Anubis and Succubus, which are these like sex demons, like when you have certain dreams and what we would call wet dreams and things of that nature, they would talk about spiritually there was some type of Anubis or these sexual demons, even if you will, that would be interacting with your spirit man, which would cause about those type of things. Not in every situation, right, that there's a wet dream, but there were certain situations depending on what your bloodline represented, or certain things that people may have come into agreement with, generationally, stuff like that. And I'll get to your comment in just a second, Miss Reese. And then we have Phi Beta Kappa. So we're almost done, y'all. Just hang with me now. But we get an understanding of what these Greek gods are, what they represent, right? And then we have Phi Beta Sigma. And if you're new coming on, just scroll back a couple minutes and you'll see where I first started talking about what these Greek gods were for each fraternity and what they represent, or sorority. So you have Phi Beta Sigma, which is Pallas or Pallas, Athena, Greek goddess of wisdom and war. Then you have Horus, Egyptian sky god. So that's for Phi Beta Sigma. So it says, note, Phi Beta Sigma, Zeta, Phi Beta are constitutionally bound. Thus, the false gods spiritually overlap as well. So yeah, Phi Beta Sigma and Zeta, Phi Beta. And then we have Sigma Gamma Rho, Aurora, which we don't have a lot of Sigma Gamma Rhos down here. Apparently they ain't so cool down here, but they kind of cool up north. So, for whatever that's worth to you. But that's Aurora, Roman goddess mentioned in rituals. And then we have Zeta Phi Beta, which is archon, demon, or underworld ruler of Gnosticism. Is that it? And then it's all organizations with hazing. Seth, Egyptian god of war, disorder, violence, pain, god of the desert storms. Many Greek organizations use the term Set for underground hazing activities. In addition, crossing the burning sands refers to going from a pledge to becoming a full member. Okay. So here's the thing, right? So we read some of that stuff, and then let me get to Reese's comment. I'm sorry. I don't think people go too deep into it like this to understand it. That reminds me of the fine print terms, the parts we don't always read. Yes, I agree 1,000% with that. And so Um, so here's the thing. There was a clip, and I'm mad. I didn't get to put all this stuff up, but there was a point in Lecrae's video where he said, "You think W.E.B. Du Bois and Martin Luther King and Coretta Scott King and all these people were coming in agreement with the demons?" And I'm like, possibly, yes. If you're saying, if you're make, here's the thing. This is what you have to realize, right? If we go to scripture, if we go to Genesis, if the devil would have tempted Eve with the tree of evil and eat from the tree of evil and corruption, would she have bit the apple? If he said this is going to be a tree that is going to make your life a living hell and it's going to be full of, it's going to make you see evil and corruption and defiance and all of these things, would she have bit the apple? Here's what we have to understand about the devil. He's going to contort and twist the truth in a way that makes it seem that he's going to contort and twist evil and lies and deception in a way that makes it seem palatable to you. It was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. He said he don't want you to be like him. We were already like him. We were already made in the image of God. Already. He formed us from the beginning to be like him. But the enemy took things and he twisted them and perverted them in a way. Everything, every evil thing, this is what we have to realize too about the enemy. Everything that he does, the evil things that he twists and perverts is, well, the things that he twists are always perversions of what God has or does. Even being spiritually woke or conscious or, talking about, third eyes or chakras and all of those things. Are those things real things that are part of our bodies and our spirits and our consciousness? Yes. But when the enemy gets a hold of them, he perverts them and twists them in a way that takes us away from God. So when you talk about frats, when you talk about pledging, when you talk about these small little things that are within the Invictus poem that every part of the Divine Nine quotes, or when you make these when you do these rituals or these pledges or these things, these oaths that you make, and you make a pledge to represent this to the day you die. Why would I be making a pledge to represent a fraternity or a sorority until the day I die? I thought this was just about service. I thought this was, even if we take the extreme version of what we all know fraternities and sororities to be, is full of whoremongering, drunkenness. This is orgies. I've heard this from people who are in frats. Don't tell me I'm lying. I've heard this from grown men who pledged. And they say, I don't even know, man, I was just doing X, Y, and Z and end up, man, we just ran a train we listen. This is where you have to be careful. Talking to men specifically. This is where you have to be careful, because you end up falling victim to the things that you are proclivitous to in the first place. You become a part of these things and you mask things that you wanted to do or were capable of doing, and you hide it behind a frat. Because that's what was in your heart. Let none of us say that God has tempted us, but we are pulled away by our own desires. That's Bible. And so when we go back and we look at, so we looked at the Invictus poem, right? This self-empowerment. I am in control of my life. That's what the end of that poem is saying. I'll go through all of these things. My head will get bloody. I'm going to keep going because it's about me. I'm in control. I'm the leader. No, you're not. Jesus, if you are a believer, is your Lord, and he has control and say so over your life. So if you are a part of anything like that, see, this is what people have to understand about the spiritual realm. You give the enemy, let me say it this way, when you engage in syncretism, when you say, I'm going to be a part of a fraternity, and I'm going to go live a lifestyle in private that is contrary to what the Bible says, or we're not talking about, let's even say we take out the demonic part. Let's say there's a part of this where you are a married man, you pledged grad chapter, and you became a whoremonger within a frat. Yes, you are a believer, but guess what? You give the enemy spiritual authority in the spirit realm to draw things to connect to you. Demons and spirits get doorways into our lives through our sin, through our allegiances to the enemy. And what ends up happening when I listen to somebody like a Lecrae Moore who says, I wouldn't feel anything about it. Now you said 20 years ago, you privately denounced, you never said anything publicly, you never mailed in a letter, you never told anybody you were done with it, you just moved campuses. And I have a word in my mind that what that is, but I'm not going to disrespect you. When you do things like that, though, see, when you get married, let's say it made you live a life that was unsavory, right? Cool. You say, I don't like these guys. He said, I secretly denounced it. I said, I'm done with it. I'm going to another campus. I don't want to be a part of this right now because it wasn't anymore. Now that your life is more in order, you're older, you're more mature, you're married, you're set, you got all these things. Well, I don't see anything wrong with it. And we gotta be careful about these types of things because they still present doorways into places and things and people that pull us away from God, that are allegiances to things that we never meant to make an allegiance to. Because once again, these are Greek practices. The Greek people who I put here, they represented the pantheon of secret societies, brotherhood, and cults. So it's not just Greek letters. No matter how much you want to say that it's just Greek letters, it's not just Greek letters. It represents the mindset, the culture, the philosophy, the practices of Greek society, which was dripping in secrecy, in society, secret societies and cults and practices, homosexuality. Pedophilia. Because now this becomes this secret place where we can do our favorite sins and nobody will ever know about it unless somebody gets out and says something about it. So when we look at what they practice in these fraternities, it's full of, during this pledging process, after you or before you cross the burning sands, there's this humiliation. There's this degradation, whether that's getting paddled in front of a bunch of grown men, where they or these and I put humiliation, degradation, getting paddled, beat for not remembering certain things, excuse me, being branded. uh, it's riddled with secrecy, pride, and aggression associated with it because of the endurance it took you to cross. So now, because you had this thing that they call eating the apple, and I listened to another man talk about this, where they blindfold you and tell you to trust me, listen to the voice. You're going to eat this fruit that's not a fruit. It ends up being an onion, or this putrid cheese that it typically is hard for you to keep down. So if you throw it up, we're going to beat you. So when I make it to the other side of this, guess what? You didn't go through what I went through to be a part of this. So guess what? If you faking, if you lying, I'm going to beat you right now. So take the letters off. There should never be anything in a man that should make you want to put hands on somebody else where it's not protecting your family, defending yourself. That I don't even have much. It should, if it's not that, because even in defending our faith, it shouldn't come to physical things. I never forget when my youth leader told me, Ben Conyers, when I was young, and I asked him about like physical aggression, like, defending yourself. He said, here's the difference. If somebody threatens me, my family, and they try to do physical harm to me, I defend myself. If it is for my faith, I lay my life down. But for some reason, when it comes to frats, take them letters off or I'm gonna smash you. You see somebody, y'all do y'all's handshake. It don't matter if he from Philadelphia and you from Texas. Y'all got a secret handshake. You ask him about the history. If he don't know the history, you gotta humiliate him in front of everybody. Anything outside of the allegiance of Christ is an allegiance to the devil. And we have to make things very, very simple, folks. So you telling me that you're going to redeem, oh, this is redemptive work. I got to lead people to Christ. Bro, okay. If I met these 10 men that I crossed with in 2002, and I met them through a fraternity, and we all crossed together, and you're telling me, and this is Eric Mason who was saying this, that pretty much, well, it's my brothers, man. I love my brothers. They're your brothers regardless, sir. The fraternity doesn't make them any more your brothers than I'm your brother because we're believers. It's the same thing. But y'all make it seem like y'all have to be associated with this frat. Yeah, I met people at a job. They my friends outside of the job. If I'm not there no more, they not my friend no more because I'm not at the job. Can we simplify this and stop playing around? Still my friend. And if they were only my friend based off of being a part of this job, you're probably not my friend. Can we just really make this stuff super simple and stop playing around? Or the whole thing about, well, so I was worshiping a Greek god, huh? Okay, well, do you wear Nikes? Oh yeah, do you? Let me look at your closet. It's like, brother, why are you so offended? It's okay. You don't listen, bro. It's okay. You could say you just won't take your. Now I understand. When I was in my early 20s, I was in my very early 20s. I was probably still at UTA before I graduated, and I was talking about pledging. And this guy, I don't remember his name. I do remember he had a Cadillac that was a V8. That thing could go. Do you hear me? And he said, you can't serve two masters. And I did not understand. For the life of me, I could not understand what that man was talking about. I was like, what? You can't serve two masters? Like, it's a fraternity. It's Kappas. They dance. They shimmy. Like, what are you talking about? He said, look it up. And I was like, this nigga done lost his mind. What are you talking about? But now I get it. Now I get it. I listened to grown men say, I seen a dude that had a suit on. He was probably one of the cooler Kappas at UTA because it was a bunch of poochies ones. And I remember him having on a nice suit. It was just a nice suit, man. He put it together well. And somebody complimented him. He said, I am a representation of Kappa Alpha Psi. It's like everything you do is wrapped up in this. You can't just be a well-dressed man. Like everything has to be a representation of that frat. That's worship. That's an idol. And if nothing else, it's syncretism. It's a mixing. You are saying, give me my frat and give me Jesus. And that has no place in the kingdom. I'm sorry. You don't have to like me. You don't gotta want to watch this playback or this live. It is not of God to mix those things. Because if it's redeemable, it needs to be fully redeemable. If I am going to use music to redeem the world, if I'm going to use rap, for instance, to be this redeemable thing that saves souls, I can't play both sides. I can't still be at the industry parties getting lit, but then want to witness the people once the high come down. I can't, for what we've seen for a long time in the industry, I can't make 13 songs of I'm gonna get you pregnant tonight, and then the last song is I love you, Lord, and I live my voice. We can't keep doing that. We can't keep mixing the two and acting like everything is okay. The oaths you don't know, the oaths you don't know you're taking, is what are getting you caught up. It's most of the time in fact, if we look at being a believer, if we look at most of the time, right? If you was a big weed smoker, when you come to Christ, you probably ain't gonna smoke weed no more. You probably gonna let Earl still come over, but you ain't gonna smoke weed no more, right? If you was popping pills, you probably gonna stop popping pills because that was such a big thing for you, right? But when it comes to the small things or the things you hold most dear to you, you'll make justifications on why you want to hold on to them. The early adopters of fraternal order were mimicking something that they didn't even know or understand. But you low key wanted to be a part of those white fraternities. You wanted to be a part of those intellectual societies because that was a sense of worth that it gave you. That's why you said, I'm going to start my own thing and then I'm going to make it my own. I'm going to adopt what I don't know and then I'm going to interweave it and make it something that is palatable for everybody else. Because we are so elite. We're in the know. The devil is using you as a part of his workshop to infiltrate things that it shouldn't be infiltrating. It's a form of religion. There's this public oath and pledge that you make. You do this secret stuff, and then there's this public declaration, and then there's this wearing of the letters, and the biggest trick of the enemy is he's taking these things, all of these things that you do in private, right? All of the things that you do in private, they're all the humiliation, all of those things, all of the quotes, all of those are all things that are drilling that allegiance into you. It's no different than me saying I'm gonna read my Bible every day. I'm gonna pray every day. I'm gonna go serve my local church. I'm gonna live a certain way. It's the same exact thing. It is worship of that fraternity, of that sorority. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to hear it or not, that ain't my problem. I love you, but it ain't my problem. The redeeming quality of things through the redeeming quality of things is through the blood of Jesus. It has to actually be something that we can look and judge the fruit. When's the last time you seen somebody in the last 20 to 30 years talk about fraternities and talk about the work they did in the community? Talk about the souls that were saved. They're founded on Christian principles. That only becomes a thing that is talked about once somebody starts asking, well, what about the oath that you make to Minerva? That's in this actual oath that we can pull up and read off the internet. Sorry. What about that? Oh, well, there's no way I could be a devil worshiper. It's founded on Christian principles. Which ones? Can somebody, anybody, tell me which Christian principles are these fraternity, are any of them founded on that they actually practice? I can go to a church on Sunday. I can be moved with emotion by the music. I could hear the pastor give me a plea to change my life because I could walk out of here and die. I could walk down that altar to that altar. I could recite these words, and then I can leave out of that church, never open my Bible, never pray, never change anything about my life, but I'm saved. There's got to be evidence of these Christian principles that we talk about. There's got to be proof of the fruit that I bear. And just saying that it was founded on Christian principles, but we're gonna do our little line thing, and then when somebody gets in the way, we're gonna almost beat them to a bloody pulp. I'm gonna wear these letters around campus, and I know plenty of women are gonna bite, and I'm gonna run through them all. We're gonna have parties, we're gonna get super drunk. And listen, I get it. For anybody who says, man, uh listening, going to concert, that's worship. Everybody got their hands raised, and I get it, bro. You're a Cowboy fan, ain't you? You cheer when they do well and you mad when they do wrong. I get it, bro. Excuse me. But you're worshiping a false god. You didn't know. I'm not mad at you. You didn't know, but that's what you're doing. Here's the end of the matter. And if anybody has any comments, please let me know. But here's the end of the matter. It is obvious from the people that there's this mass exodus from the pleas that they made. I watched this one last night, and it gives me chills to think about it, because this man, and I believe he was a part of Alpha Phi Alpha, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not correct, but he talked about he had walked away from it. He had got serious with God, and he walked away from it, from the frat, and so he said when the sun would go down, he would start having these, like, he couldn't sleep. He would start having certain, like, symptoms, and things were bothering him, and it didn't matter how much he prayed, he couldn't sleep, and he felt he was being tormented by spirits, by evil spirits. He said that he had extreme levels of poverty that he would face. No matter how hard he worked, he couldn't, make money. He couldn't achieve certain things. And basically he was fasting. This happened for years. He said he would call people to pray for him. He would only get a couple hours of sleep, all of that. And he said, God basically told him, like, what did you do? Like, what did you do at this year, at this time, at this month? And that was when he pledged. And he said, you bowed the knee to another God. Y'all may not get it. You may not understand it. You may not believe it, but you bowed your knee to another God. Deeply ingrained in these Greek philosophies, there are secret societies. There are these rituals and practices. There are these sacrifices. There are these things that all they did was learn how to adjust them to present day. And the question is this a salvation issue? Is this something that will stop you from entering heaven? If you don't denounce the frat, renounce what you believed in, will this stop you from entering the kingdom? And I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I don't. I believe that we're at a place in time on earth right now where we have to be very clear where our allegiances lie. I'll say that. And all the things that could stop you from having a pure heart before God, all of the things that could stop you from having this two-way street between hearing God and speaking to him clearly. We have to be very strategic about clearing the roadway. And I don't believe that it'll stop you from getting into heaven, but I do believe that it can stop you from experiencing heaven on earth. And there just may come a time where you have to make a decision. And I pray that whatever it is, you're thinking about what it means to actually glorify God. So even if you choose not to be to walk away from that frat or that sorority, think about the way you live your life. Think about the conversations that you have on a regular basis, the way you treat people, the way that you honor God with your money and your time, your relationships, and ask yourself if anything that doesn't look like that, anything that is a synchronization of things that don't look like him, if they are worth it or have time or space to really be in your life. And ultimately, I believe that if you seek God during those times and have certain conversations, I believe he'll give you the clarity that only he could give you anyway. As I said at the beginning, I don't believe I have all the answers. I just have questions and I wanted to have dialogues with my brothers and sisters. To anybody who may have watched this video, I love you. I pray that the Lord truly does speak to your heart. And I pray that if it's something that truly doesn't affect your life in any way, I say God bless you. And I pray keep you. But I just don't believe that overall, I don't believe that stuff has any place within the kingdom. Thank you for anybody who has been watching. Talking about frats. Should there be this mass exodus? Should this be the death of frats for the believer? If you have any other conversations or topics, please email me at anthonymoore@themindofamannetwork.com. Once again, that is Anthony Moore at themindofamannetwork.com. You can also follow me at the Mind of a Man Network on Instagram. Started a new page for you guys. Thank you for tuning in to the network. As I end every podcast, life is hard enough. So please don't just live elevated. And until next time, I love you. May the Lord keep you. I'll see you at the conference. Peace.